Welcome to the College Chaps podcast. Well, spring football has started for some programmes, meaning we're back. So, in this episode, we're going to look back at the tremendous impact Lou Holtz and David Cutcliffe have had on college football. We're going to ask the question, are we asking too much of college football fans? And then we'll see where the next stop on our college football crossroads trip takes us. But first, the Chaps. I'm joined by the greatest college football duo since Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush made the USC Trojans a force to be reckoned with. How are you both?
Easy for you to say. Just if who I'm intrigued. Which one of us is Matt Leinart and which one's Reggie Bush? Because if you're asking me to unretire my number, the answer will be fuck off.
Well, one of us is tall and a bit of a statue, so I think that makes me Matt Leinart, right?
Or you could be a statue like the Heisman Trophy that Reggie Bush so rightly got back.
Fair, fair.
Well,
fair.
it could be an episode on its own, to be perfectly honest. Which one is Reggie Bush and which one is Matt Leinart? I don't know.
Let's go. The
I think that,
unscripted college chaps unscripted the USC Trojans edition.
well, that's what you thought it was unscripted last week, Ollie. I don't know. I mean, it's a question mark. Reggie Bush, I don't think is underrated in any. I mean, Reggie Bush just one of the greatest college football running backs. I think the question is Matt Leinart overrated or underrated? But maybe that's for another podcast.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's
Uh,
funny. I was digging through the archives for our throwback Thursday thing today, and it was really cool to see a lot of the old episodes that we did. We did Dabo Sweeney last week and Vern Lundquist this week. I never asked for your input. I just went ahead and did it. Do you have any favourites? Either of you?
Oh, yeah, I think it's difficult to say. To be honest, we've had so many awesome guests and like incredible moments and stuff. I always love it when a guest comes back. That's always nice. Um, yeah, yeah. Dabo Swinney taking the mick out of my hair. Like I'd even forgotten about that until you brought it back up, George. And
My pleasure.
Clemson haven't won a natty yet since, should I say? And don't look like they're winning one anytime soon.
Well, maybe if we don't hype them up this year, they might do something. Right, let's go on to the scripted agenda. The quicker we get on it, the quicker we'll get off it. So we were going to talk about this last week and we didn't get a chance to talk about it. And it's still relevant. It was relevant in many ways, but it was the funeral of Lou Holtz this week, who sadly passed away. And I was reflecting on some of the kind of stuff that was written about him, the obituaries and the like. And I found it hard to think of a character who we associated more with college football than Lou Holtz, to be honest. Because I think every time you saw Lou Holtz on TV, he was clearly talking about college football very passionately. But I just felt he was synonymous with college football games. So many players, coaches then go on and have an NFL career, but Lou Holtz was pretty much the face of college football. I don't know. I don't know if you agree, but thoughts on Lou Holtz and his impact on the college football game?
what I like about him, and it's a very similar thing to Nick Saban, right, is that he did try the NFL for a tiny little bit, decided, fuck off, it's not that fun, I'm coming back to college football. And that is something that I like. I respect that in a man. And obviously he had a great career. So yeah, he's obviously a great coach, as you say, super synonymous with the world of college football. For many people that are or have grown up with the game in the last sort of 20 to 30 years, he would be a key personality in their love for the game, whether that is, you know, in the latter stages of his coaching career or as you say with his work on TV. And it's just one of those that comes across as a really nice human being the whole time. And you don't you see a persona, you don't get to know the person necessarily in these relationships, but he came across as a very genuine human being and someone that when you're this widely respected, you have to be a genuine human being to stick around something this important for this long at this high of a level, and to have this much respect from people.
Yeah, I think the respect thing is key and is a key part of when you look back over the coaching career. Obviously, a massive amount of success. A coach who had double digit win seasons at two different programs like that's something in itself. To take a program like Arkansas to double digit wins twice, to take Notre Dame to six double digit wins he had at Notre Dame, including an undefeated season. Like the success was, is evident, is obvious. To have a head coaching career, we talked about not flitting to the NFL for a long time, or not treating the NFL as the end game, or treating college football as a step up to the end game that is the NFL. Like a head coach, not just a coach, a head coach of over 30 years is like something that we probably won't see again. We're seeing so many head coaches either want to get to the NFL or just retiring because the game is the stresses of the game are so significant now. So obviously that incredible success as a head coach is something in its own right. But you mentioned the tributes and the obituaries and everything, George. Like all the former players lining up behind his coffin at his funeral, all the people that we respect from covering the game who talk about Lou Holtz's impact on them when they used to see him on TV talking about the game of college football. I think that's the thing that resonated most for me, because for a lot of people of the younger generation now, their abiding memory of Lou Holtz is going to be Ryan Day wanting to punch him in the face, or the scuffle that those two guys did on camera very publicly, just whatever there was behind that. Like, if you're new to college football, that's you think Lou Holtz is just a guy that Ryan Day wanted to punch in the face, but there's a lot of respect and a lot that goes into his legacy, and I think it's great to see how much of that is being celebrated and how much that influence really does resonate across the whole college football landscape, and in a way that we probably will never see again.
I think it's a really interesting career to look back on as well. Like you look at the job he did even at South Carolina when he went in after retiring the first time, and that program went 1-10 the year before he arrived, then went 0-11 in his first year. And if you think about nowadays, how many coaches are surviving a big program, you know, going 0-11 in their first year, not winning a game in their first year. And a year later, he takes that team to an 8-4 record. They win the bowl game against Ohio State, like huge turnaround. And he goes on to have a few good years with the Gamecocks, and I think that's a really really important lesson that people can learn going back and um, looking at how things have worked in the past and how that can be used in the future. Yeah, he was the reason that the South Carolina really brought themselves back in the early to mid 2000s. And I think it's important that you sometimes you give these coaches a little bit of time.
Yeah, you're right. A winless season in this current era of college football gets you a fast track to the to getting sacked. I think, but to Ollie's point, you can tell when you've had a real impact, and this will resonate with you, Alex, as a coach, when years after you finish coaching, your players from the past are there to show their respects, and it's about the personality of the man. It's the way that he treated people. It was the respect, the dignity, all of that kind of stuff that he treated people with. Because if he didn't do that, those people wouldn't be there paying their respects. Ollie, you talked about 30-year careers. Someone who's just hung up his boots on a 40-year career at football, David Cutcliffe, and I feel really honoured to have got to know Coach Cutcliffe traveling to SEC media days, and I think I said to you last time we met up, Ollie, about he just kind of he chats and tells stories and imparts his knowledge and wisdom to anybody who's willing to listen to him. But I guess it's easy to get the headline stuff, but clearly the work he did with the two Manning brothers, and arguably what he's done with Arch as well, maybe less publicised, certainly has had a major impact on the world of college football and football in general.
Yeah, absolutely. We spend a lot of time on this show listening to me and Alex, and George, you have arguably, not even arguably is not the right word. You have so many great stories from your travels overseas. That's just sounded so weak. Overseas to the Southern Heartland. You touched on the time you spent with Coach Cutcliffe. Well, obviously we had him on this show as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit more in depth about some of those experiences? Because I think that's a great way to recognise what's been an awesome football career. We can talk about the records at Duke, and we can talk about the records at Ole Miss, and we can talk about the Manning brothers, and he did when he was on the show. But you have got, you every time you've been to SEC media days, he's come and he's spoken to you, which I think is awesome. And we don't spend enough time talking about some of them stuff. So if you would be so kind, I'd love to hear it personally.
Well, I mean, the interactions are just, sometimes almost unbelievable, right? We talk on this podcast about, all of the different coaches and stuff like that. And you're right, Coach Cutcliffe was a guest on the show just before I got to meet him for the first time, and I met him for the first time alongside Commissioner Sankey when on my first media days. And what struck me was his humility of it all, right? Because he was kind of thanking us for flying the college football flag overseas and talking about the work that we did, right? As opposed to wanting to sit and talk to him about what he did with the Manning brothers. But at the last media days at Atlanta, there's a little kind of backstage area where you just go and grab something to eat. And it was the tail end of lunchtime, and I'd been doing something and managed to get round to grab something to eat before the afternoon session started. It turns out I didn't get any to eat because Coach Cutcliffe was backstage, and he kind of came across and just started chatting. Now the thing is, I don't know how you guys feel, but when you're chatting to someone, you don't want to be taking up all of their time, right? So you're just really mindful. And I said, listen, I'm going to go and get something to eat. Don't have to stand and chat to me. And he went, no, let's have a seat. And I was there for the next half hour talking to him, and it was really about him talking about how he relates to players, and how he talks, and he openly admitted that the kind of the challenges that coaches have got now in the way that they relate to players, and it was fascinating. And he kept on saying, well, keep in touch, and we want to come back on the podcast, give me a shout, and all of that kind of stuff, and just very, very humble. And in fact, when I was in Dallas, I was walking up to my hotel room. I think I was checking in, and this person came out of the room next to me. And some of these hotels are quite dimly lit, and I thought, who's this character coming towards me? And it was Coach Cutcliffe. And he stopped, and the thing is, he recognised me, and he just started chatting away and was asking how a lot of people, most people, will say to me, how are the other guys? And we met Adam Rittenberg in Miami, and the first thing he said was, where are the other chaps? Why are they not here, right? So I think it's just kind of cool that, there's a lot of things that are cool about these interactions, but don't dismiss. We've talked about this before about how we don't really blow our own trumpet, but people recognise what we're doing, whether we're doing it well or badly. They're recognising that we're doing it, and they take an interest in it, and that's what he did. He takes an interest in what we're doing. So I think it's kind of cool to hear that.
I think you make a really interesting point, and it's something I want to pick up on because I kind of know what it feels like being a head coach. Being a head coach is an incredibly lonely job. You're surrounded by people, but you're really lonely because you don't have anyone that's on your social level, right? You have assistant coaches, and they're awesome, they're amazing, they work really hard, but you've got to lead them, so you can't you treat them as equals, but you don't in the same way. You can't tell them your problems because you're leading them. You can't burden them with your problems as well. And I think with the athletes, it's exactly the same. You're trying to lead them. Yes, you want to treat them as equals, but similarly, they have enough of their own issues that you don't want to put your issues on them. And I think for a lot of these head coaches, when they can interact with media figures, especially media figures that they can somewhat relate to, people that love the game, that love the sport like they do, finally we can have these conversations that are conversations between people that are equal, that are equal on their social footing. And that's not something that you get to have as a head coach very often. And I think it's why a lot of these guys are so well respected by the media, because actually I think it helps them to be able to have these conversations with media figures. I think it helps them, especially the long form content, the guys that are relationship builders in the media as well, that aren't just looking to get a story and make their name off of one wayward quote. I think the storytellers in the media play a really, really important role for head coaches because it can get very, very tough to process some of the things that happen when you haven't got those people to necessarily turn to the whole time. And I think that we've seen that with some of these head coaches that we get on. They love to talk because almost a lot of the time they don't have the people to talk to.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I absolutely think so. And I think that's where the likes of media days are so incredibly helpful for everybody involved, right? And let's be honest, if it wasn't helpful, to your point, Alex, if it wasn't helpful for the head coaches, they wouldn't do it.
Mm,
You know,
yeah, 100%.
and I think it's just a really good way of advertising the brand or getting a message across or whatever way you want to. You can tell there are some coaches who could see it far enough, right? But I just think it's really helpful, and I just someone like Coach Cutcliffe who took up that kind of special, relationship to the commissioner kind of idea. It was just it was an old wise head, imparting his knowledge to other coaches, and he just kind of walked around and talking to everybody. And I think it was a really good way. I wish him a long and healthy retirement, but it will certainly be missed. That's for sure. Um, just quickly before, because we want to talk about Campus Crossroads, right? It was such a melee last time. We want to give that some proper time. But before we do, a coach who is actually very long tenured is Kirby Smart, and I bring this up for a kind of couple of reasons. Kirby's been in the press this week. I think it's well known that he's not a big fan of the changing of uniforms and all that kind of. I think he talks about it being a real annoyance to him. But it was kind of raised this week, probably because there was nothing else to talk about the suggestion that Georgia would wear all white uniforms this year. And again, it's largely irrelevant in terms of what we really want to talk about. But Kirby had kind of, I don't know, I think he was trying to get into the conversation, but to me, he was a little bit flippant when he said, well, if we get 3 times as many subscribers to the kind of the following NIL, whatever you want to call about the platform, then we'll wear them at spring practice. And I don't know, I maybe was feeling slightly negative at the time, but I just wondered, are we asking too much of the fans now? Because the fans have been asked to pay out at every opportunity, right? Now, I guess Kirby will say he did it tongue in cheek and did it as part of a bit of banter and stuff like that. But that horse has left the stable, because people, if you watch social media this week, you saw everybody saying, right, let's get the I think it was the NIL platform, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it just feels a little bit like we're asking the fans to do an awful lot, and I guess by subscribing and all that kind of stuff, what we're really talking about is them taking money out of pockets and paying it into the program. That's really where I'm coming from, as opposed to putting their email address onto the Georgia database.
There's only one database that people around the Georgia football program are on, and that's the Athens PD Speed Awareness Program. You're absolutely right, George. It struck me. It struck me throughout the month of March, if I'm being honest, the amount of social media posts from college football programs for like giving days. So like specific days where they're really honing in on raising funds for the program, and tongue in cheek or not, Kirby's excuse me, Kirby Smart's comment about doubling the donations is kind of just a highly visualized, highly publicized version of what's going on everywhere. And I remember reading an article from the perspective of Clemson fans, maybe 2 years ago, and it was our season tickets are already this much, and now we're being asked to provide this much on top, and like, oh, then we have to provide this much for something else, and we're being asked to provide. This was like 2 years ago. It wasn't even close to what's happening now, and it is too much for people, without going into a political current affairs charade on a college football podcast. Like, we're all living in times of really tight budgets. Cost of living is expensive regardless of how much money you earn, and that hits people hard. And then to have a begging bowl from college football programs is kind of tough for people to chew. Yes, there's always going to be multi-millionaire billionaires who are going to finance a program like at Texas Tech with Cody Campbell. But a lot of these smaller programs in particular really are leaning on fans to help fund whatever success they can garner as a program, and the money that it takes to do that in the modern era of college football. And it is tough. It's extremely tough for people. For what used to be tickets under 10. Let's use tickets under $10 as an example. Like, you'd be able to get a ticket for $10, go and watch a game of football, buy a beer for $1 because it was on offer in the stadium, or get a hot dog for $1 in the stadium. Like, a lot of programs now, there's not that opportunity to just go and comfortably financially enjoy a game of football, because that's the price of success in the modern era of college football, and it is tough on fans.
Yeah, I agree. Something that not a lot of people know about me is that I have a minor degree in economics, and it feels very much like a bubble right now in college football. We had the revolutionary wave, the revolutionary NIL uh, deals getting approved. Everyone's investing right now. There's a fear of being the program that misses out because you can't offer funds. And at some point, that bubble's going to burst because these college football teams are not providing 10 times the value that they were 5 years ago. These athletes are not providing 10 times the value that they were 5 years ago. And eventually, we're going to reach a point where one of these big programs goes, or the boosters of one of these big programs goes, no more. We don't have any more. And suddenly, it's just going to go bang.
Well, I think we've seen it already, haven't we? Because you raise a good point about value, and I think there's a look for college football which isn't great just now. I think I'm going to pick on Georgia a little bit here, or even Texas or Miami is I think where I'm going to go. But I think there's a difference between getting a player and we recognise that the days of pay to play are here, right? I mean, that's just the way of it now. But you're gonna pay a player to come along, and then that player doesn't live up to the expectations, but is still driving about the Lamborghini. I just don't think that's a great look for college football in general, right? And then I was listening to Feinbaum before I came on, and people talking about Kirby Smart is due a new deal, right? Now, this was raised about Kalen DeBoer at the end of the season about would Alabama offer him a new deal to keep him from going to Michigan or Penn State, who were looking for a head coach. And the question was raised, well, is he worth a new deal, right? So I think it's about that value, because if you're paying into an NIL fund and you're seeing your money going to, and arguably Kirby Smart still is the best coach in college football. That I know it's up for debate, but arguably, but going to Kirby Smart to make him the highest paid player and the highest paid coach in college football. Now I know I'm kind of mixing here a little bit, because that comes from the school as opposed to an NIL fund. I think it's about, are you getting value for it? And I we've talked about this before, but I get not nervous, but I get almost suicidal thinking about private equity coming into college football, because I think that's where the value aspect of it gets driven to infinity, right? They're looking for a return on their investment, and they'll get that return. And to your point, Alex, about whether the program can continue to support those growth aspirations, I think it's scary times. For what it's worth, do you care if Georgia wear a white uniform this season?
Oh, you can do this part of the code. We haven't got that many minutes left on the clock to talk about how much I care about alternate uniforms, George. I care very much about alternate uniforms. I'm very passionate on this topic. I would pay 3 times whatever it is that Kirby Smart wants to see some icy whites out there in Athens.
I bet you would. As you say, we better not start you on the alternative uniform front. Right, okay. Campus Crossroads, just as a reminder to those listening last time round, Oliver is on the east side of the country, Rutgers. Alex is in the northwest of the country, in Portland, Oregon. And I am shoulder to shoulder with Mr. Chinley in the northwest, because I'm in Pullman in Washington State. Okay, so we are effectively traversing around the country. It'll be interesting to see where we're going to make our trip to next. I'm looking to see who's prepared. Ollie doesn't want me to throw him under the bus, but I've got a feeling he's prepared this week. Are you prepared, Oliver?
I'm prepared all the time, George.
Okay. Alex, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I do, actually. There's 2 ways I could go. I could head inland a little bit, which is a part of the US that I've never actually visited, and I love new experiences and I love new adventures. But I also love the West Coast. Anyone that knows me knows that I am very much team West Coast, best coast out here. And, driving down through those big old redwoods, down towards the Golden Gate Bridge, across it, and down into Palo Alto to get on campus at Stanford. For those of you that know me, I love another sport as much as I love football, and it's men's volleyball season right now. Stanford's one of the best teams in the country, and if I had to go and visit a second campus after Eugene, it would be heading down to the Bay Area and hanging out with my buddies at Stanford.
I was going to say, because we were starting off from fairly similar geographic locations, that I was going to head down the coast, because it's funny, I've been watching some stuff on TV which is all based on the West Coast, and it's a long time since I've been there, and I did think about heading down, but I'm going to go east. I'm going to head into, because on I guess the last big trip I did, I went up into Dakotas and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't get as far as Montana. And actually, one of the places that's really high on my list of places is Missoula, and I really want to go to Grizzly Stadium. So I think I'd want to kind of head in inland a little bit and see a little bit of the topography of that part of the world. 'Cause I just think it looks like an amazing um, location for the university, and the football stadium with the mountains behind just looks fantastic. And it's long been on my list. I know it's not one of the kind of primary programs in the country, but I think it would be really cool to end up in Missoula. Let's whisk across to the east side of the country. Get all of us on his historic trail, so we're probably going to end up in Philadelphia or somewhere next and start quoting the Constitution, are we?
Yeah, why not? Oh, that's a great shout, by the way. We've been watching Yellowstone. I'm absolutely obsessed with the idea of buying a $24.5 million ranch and becoming a cowboy, but also checking out Montana and Montana State football. Yeah, I just get plain and meaty there, George. So you took the piss out of me last week when we started this whole shebang because you obviously I got the whole instruction wrong because I wasn't
To
listening
be fair, it was
properly.
a moving feast, right? It was a
It was a
moving feast.
movable. It was a movable feast. It was nowhere near the script. We've been through this bus throwing and all that jazz. But what the crux of the matter was, I should have been listening when you said the direction, and I wasn't. But you said the northeast, and you didn't. So that's on me. But joke's on you because I look and Rutgers actually play UMass in week 1 of the 2026 college football season. So if I was started in the birthplace of college football in Piscataway, I could start watching football on Thursday night. And I could watch Rutgers versus UMass, which would be getting some action in the birthplace of college football. So screw you. But it also means that I could get 2 games in one weekend because I could then drive 180 miles west to State College and take in Penn State versus Marshall on the Saturday. And I could go to one of the greatest college football stadiums and game day experiences in college football. And it's only a 3-hour, 40-minute drive. So I could also have a drink on a Friday night. So you took the mick out of me all that episode, took the mick out of me on social media about it. Who's laughing now? I've got 2 football games. I've got a historic birthplace of college football, and I've got a banging Saturday afternoon in State College, surrounded by loads of people who hate Drew Aller and are glad to see the back of him. And I get to see Rocco Becht again in the flesh because I really enjoy watching Rocco Becht in Ireland last year, and now I can watch him for Penn State. 2 different teams. I've seen the same player, which is insane when you think about it, considering I've seen it in person for college football games.
George, I think it's good that we're on the West Coast. The idea of Ollie in a hot tub in in New Jersey drinking on a Friday night makes me glad to be on the other side of the US.
Makes you very nervous. Makes you want to be
You were going to
3,000
say
miles
you were
away.
going to say aroused.
Oh, but you Ollie's brought it back round. We're gushing about the Pacific coast and the mountains and all that kind of stuff, and he's tied it into the schedule already. Now we're going to be scrambling next week to find out what the schedule is. That's going to be more problematic for us, to be perfectly honest. It's gone from
Well,
a
it will be problematic if you're involved in a Conference USA, Sunbelt, or MAC team where all those conference schedules are completely still up in the air midway through March, which is insanity.
wait. There's a team got 20 games on their schedule, isn't it? Is it
Louisiana Tech
Louisiana?
is
Louisiana Tech.
currently got far more games because they're on 2 conference schedules because they want out of Conference USA, but they don't want to pay the money it takes to get out of it. So they're on the Sunbelt schedule and the Conference USA schedule, and there does not look like a solution to that situation coming anytime soon, which is insane. And then the MAC, obviously, I added Sacramento State, and they still haven't got their arse together and like pulled their schedule out of their arse, even though Mountain West did the same thing with North Dakota State. So there. What a great way to end the episode.
Great finish. I'm definitely going to have to press the expletive button. Parental guidance is is required, which is
Do we
not
have to press
unusual.
do we have to press a product placement button as well? Seeing as Alex has just like lifted and quite clearly displayed his beverage make to camera.
Yeah, I also made the explicit button need to be pressed about 30 seconds into the episode. So
I did notice that. It's like I've got a little notebook here, and I'm like, okay, right, here we go. Make sure we press the button. Yeah, after that last conversation with Laura Rutledge, we never got our sponsorship deal. Gonna have to circle back, find out what's happening there. Anyway, we run over again, 6 minutes overtime. Well done, chaps. No overtime paid on this podcast.
Not bad.
That's all the time and some we have for on this episode. Thank you to Alex and Ollie for their awesome company. Thanks to you for listening and continuing to support us. Stay safe and well, and catch you all next time.